One thing that we've been tracking down with Rick Allen a little bit is, where did he live other than Mexico, his hometown, and Delphi, where he moved and where he was recently arrested. And one place that comes up a lot is actually Peru, Indiana, in Miami County.
1963, the Mitchell Tribune reported that he first went to work for the Miami Consolidated School District, which of course is north of Peru, and his role was basically the supervising principal for the elementary schools that pulled from towns like Mexico, Chile, Gilead, and Macy. And some background about Homer, who was, a public figure locally and relatively well known, as we understand it. He had degrees from Huron High School, he went to Anderson College, Ball State Teachers College, and he previously taught at Lakeland Community Schools in Syracuse, Indiana. He's since passed away, but it's interesting that there's sort of a family tie to somebody who would have been very much in, part of the community and a kind of an important member of the community. And what Amanda was able to tell us is that she does kind of remember people teasing Rick in school about that. Your grandpa's the principal. Not much of a sick burn, in my opinion, but just something, that she was able to remember slightly. Here's what Gabriella had to say about not only Rick, but his family, which consisted of his two parents and a younger sister. Very, very just normal, small-town American family. Just normal. His sister and I would sometimes carpool together to school when we were teenagers. And Ricky was a little bit older than us. Gabriella didn't remember many activities that Rick was involved in high school, and she noted that his senior page didn't even have a quote, which in retrospect she found a little odd.
Exactly, and more often people would say things like what Edward said here. One thing I want to say is that I've known Rick's parents all my life, and they're good people. If Rick did or didn't do this, he's a 50-year-old man, and he made his choices. I still can't believe that the guy I remember would do anything like this, but there's a lot people can change in 30 years.
I can speak for Rick as a child. We played baseball together. This is a small town of 350 people. We played baseball in the summertime, traded baseball cards, played Army with my next-door neighbor and Ricky. I would have never guessed when this first came out. When I see that picture of Ricky, I was like, there's no way.
And I'm really horrified by the possibility that this person that just seemed like a nice, normal guy could be behind it. So no one was reflexively defensive or anything like that. She described Mexico and the area around it as, it's not very big, it's just a little cornfield county type school. And here's what Amanda said about Rick himself. From what I remember, he was pretty quiet. We haven't really had any connection since graduating in 1991, which is a lifetime ago. But I do remember that he was quiet. But he was also one of those guys that if he told you something funny, it was like a zinger out of nowhere. A lot of my classmates, they're like, man, I don't even remember who you're talking about. And Amanda also remembered one particular detail about Rick that sort of stands out to her now. I watch bodies and stuff, just a thing I do. I didn't put it together until today, but he was one of those people who kind of walked closed. Does that make sense? How some people are like, oh my gosh, here I am, shoulders open and everything. I just remember Rick being a little hunched. A little bit like, I'm keeping to myself, nobody look at me.
Another thing I found interesting in our conversation with Amanda was that she told us about an encounter with Rick she had just a few years ago.
I lived in Peru in 2016 and 2017, probably about 4 or 5 blocks from the CVS. I remember going in there one day to get batteries or something. I talked to the cashier, good day, blah, blah. And there's a guy standing behind her with a clipboard, like how they do. He goes, hey, how you doing? And I look up and say, good. But I'm like, I know that voice. And then I looked at his name tag and I was like, oh my God, Ricky Allen. And he was like, I don't know who you are. It was very cordial, but I remembered what pulled me to his name tag was his voice. When he talked, it was slow, but not stupid, if that makes sense. There was no excitement with the way that he talked. So when he spoke to me that day and I was just looking down at my shit on the counter, I was like, that sounds really familiar. We asked Amanda if she thought his voice sounded like the voice recorded on Libby's phone. She said that she did not want to speculate too much, but that it was close. And when she listened to it again with all this in mind, it gave her chills. So let's take a moment to jump back to our interview with Gabriella, one of Rick's former classmates at North Miami High School.
Yes, because Amanda there just took us up to 2016, 2017, and Gabrielle can tell us a little bit more.
He was interviewed after the murders happened. Police did interview him, and I got that through his wife telling mutual friends that happened. She played it off more like he was just part of the community and they were interviewing everybody in the community, and that's why he was interviewed right away. But I don't know if it was more than that.
Actually, the story that his wife told people wasn't quite true. Russ McQuaid of Channel 59 here in Indianapolis reported that actually Allen went to the police himself and identified himself as someone who was at the trails at roughly the time of the murders. So naturally, police at that time were interested in talking to him. For whatever reasons, maybe this is something we can discuss in the future, he got off the radar. And he wasn't really a target of the investigation, wasn't really the focus of the investigation for a while. And obviously, at some point, that changed. And there's been speculation about what it was that made that change.
Some people have said that Kathy Walker Allen, Rick's wife, tipped police off after she either found something or became suspicious. That's been one of the persistent rumors out there about how Rick Allen was arrested. And we can confirm that that's not the case.
And again, we can confirm that Kathy Walker Allen did not tip her husband into the Delphi murder investigation. Another rumor we heard was that it was Rick Allen's brother who tipped him in.
And our understanding is that he does not have a brother, that the family consisted of his parents, him, and his sister. And so obviously there would be no brother to tip him in. And we've also heard that it could have been his daughter that he shared with Kathy, or another relative, or a family friend. And we can say now, nobody tipped him in. That's not how he came back on the radar. So we want to debunk all those rumors that are sort of swirling around here right now.
There was even a rumor, and this astonished us. My sister told us that she read on the internet that Anya and I tipped him in. And that's very flattering, but it's not true.
No one, yeah, this has been, we can confirm today exactly how, or at least more of an outline of how police came upon this man once again. Basically, Rick Allen came back on the radar after somebody connected to the Delphi investigation was going through old tips, came upon a tip, came upon some sort of file or documentation regarding Rick Allen, and basically looked at it and thought that it needed a second look.
And that second look was given, and that started the chain of events that ultimately led to the arrest of Rick Allen.
Yes, but the actions of somebody affiliated with the investigation was the catalyst for this recent arrest. And it was not a tip. It was, as far as we know, not anything that anyone on the outside did. It was this sort of reviewing. And we know from knowing how the investigation works and just from various public statements and just, what you can imagine is that there are so many tips to go through. There's so many different elements here that it behooves the investigators and those associated with the investigation to continuously look through and say, wait, what's this? Do we need to look at this again? There was a whole 2019 whole New Direction press conference sort of that got to that.
And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a case of someone overlooking something, because there's always the possibility that something that didn't seem relevant in 2017, maybe you've got a new piece of information, it's been connected to a crime. None of us knows definitively what any of the evidence against him may be.
When someone is arrested and charged with a crime, prosecutors must publicly file a probable cause affidavit to explain the why. It's required by law, but today, that did not happen.
Today's about Abby and Libby.
At today's press conference, the Carroll County prosecutor said he asked a judge to keep those documents under seal because the investigation is ongoing, and investigators want more tips from the public.
For that reason, and for the nature of this case, the probable cause and the charging information has been sealed by the court.
But that is troubling to some legal experts.
It is surprising.
Novella Needham spent 2 decades as a public defender, and she now teaches law at Indiana University.
I can't think of ever hearing of a probable cause affidavit being held 30 days after an arrest was made.
The law professor says releasing probable cause information helps ensure due process for the defendant and allows the public to ask important questions. In this case, both of those could be in jeopardy because the whole case is essentially being kept secret. A hearing will be held to determine if the case details should remain under seal, but Indiana State Police say that could take a while. The head of Indiana State Police says he doesn't expect anything to happen between now and the 2nd or 3rd week of November. Then he says the judge will have to decide what and when to unseal. So for now, the evidence leading to Richard Allen's arrest remains a mystery until we get to see those court documents.